Has anyone ever asked what it costs to hire 11 for your birthday? Because, well, some of these characters aren't as impossible as you might think, and for others, you'd better start selling all your property. So get comfortable and leave a comment. Who do you think is the most expensive of the whole cast? Let's start with the ones you might actually be able to hire. Dr. Brenner. Even though it sounds cruel, Dr. Sito, the evil doctor, is one of the cheapest you'll find in the Stranger Things cast. And just to hire him and have him for one day would cost you around $40,000. And that's even though he's the cheapest of all, but there's a reason for his price. His character is very important in the series. But older actors tend to be less in demand for these kinds of events, so their price stays a bit lower. Just to encourage you, but well, if Dr. Brenner seems too old for you and you prefer something fresher, you can hire Nancy herself, Natalia Dyer, for $5,000 more. Could you have Nancy singing you happy birthday in the front row? She's very beloved by the fans. But she's not the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Stranger Things. That's why, sadly, her price doesn't skyrocket that much. But what about Max, Sadie Sink? Believe it or not, Sadie is one of the main actresses who is cheaper, even cheaper than some actors with supporting roles. And I know it sounds strange that Max, being one of the main protagonists, is in a lower range. $45,000 to be exact, and she used to be even cheaper before. But after season 4 and all the impact her character had, her price went up quite a bit. So if you had hurried, it would have cost you about $15,000 to hire Max in the first season. And I'm sorry to say that this is where the low and affordable prices end. We're starting to get into the heavyweights now. At this point, we already find actors like Gaten Matarazzo. His character, Dustin, is one of the most beloved characters in the whole series. And honestly, he could be worth a lot more, but fortunately, he has a weak point.
He attends many of these commercial fan events or television show appearances, and that's why his price isn't as high as it should be.
So having Dustin as a guest would cost you about $70,000. And that's even though Gaten doesn't like to be as greedy as others. But if you think Dustin isn't good looking and you'd rather have someone more charming, could you hire Joe Keery, the handsome guy who plays Steve Jobs? This guy isn't as expensive as some will see later, but having him face to face would still cost you an arm and a leg. Steve became so popular that even though he's not the main character, his presence at an event steals all the attention. And to be able to hire him, you'd have to shell out between $75,000 and $150,000. It all depends on how spectacular you want his hair to look and of course the price his agency sets. And just for contrast, if you had hired Joe Keery in the first season, it would have cost you around $20,000 including the premium hairstyle. And I know we said that older actors sometimes don't charge as much as the cocky kids. But David Harbour, the beloved Hopper, has become someone really key in the series. That puts him in this price range. Compared to poor Dr. Brenner, the good thing is that his price doesn't skyrocket as much as the younger ones. So to have Hopper, mustache and all, you'd have to ask your parents for about $75,000. A little higher up, that's where you start to wonder if you really need that person at your party. There are actors like Charlie Heaton, Jonathan Byers, and hiring him is estimated to cost around $85,000 Byers, which is estimated at around $85,000. I know it sounds odd that he costs more than actors like Sadie Sink or even Gaten, but there's a pretty reasonable explanation for this, and it's that the fewer events or public appearances he does, the more expensive he becomes. Charlie isn't someone who goes to conventions all the time, so when he accepts a private event, he charges more to make it worth his while. On the other hand, actors like Gaten do a lot more events and can afford to charge slightly lower prices. But if your biggest dream is to have Beckner himself in person, that's possible too. It's just that it does get a bit pricier. Just hiring Jamie Campbell Bower alone could cost you approximately between $75,000 and $150,000. Well, after season 4, the actor was in very high demand, so his prices went up too. But if you want him, with all the makeup and his portrayal of Henry Creel, he could charge you about $50,000 extra. But it would be worth it, wouldn't you agree? I know you might think that some actors would be cheaper than others, because they appear very little in Stranger Things. But surprise! Many times, they're the ones who end up being the most expensive. Billy would also be somewhere between $85,000 and $150,000. And even though he's no longer on the show, he still has a lot of fans and also has a music career, which makes his price higher. Just imagine, he's not only going to come to your party to eat cake and tacos, he can also sing and play for you. Does Sipilin fare like a true professional? That's right, it's worth the extra price. And from here on, we start with prices that even if you sold both your kidneys, you couldn't afford. Probably the first one, who won't cost you anything, it's cheap to invite her, and believe it or not, it's Maya Hawk Robin. That's because she's already between $100,000 and $200,000. Her character is one of the most beloved, she has a big last name and her own career, so she's not cheap at all. Just imagine, is she the daughter of Uma Thurman, the protagonist of Kill Bill? And that already says a lot about her price. In that same vein is Noah Schnapp, Will Byers, who, because of his character's recent prominence and his fame outside the series, he would probably be between $120,000 and $200,000 just to have him at your party for a few minutes. But you should hurry, because with the premiere of the last season, his price will surely double. And don't forget that all the main kids, when they joined in season 1, had an approximate price of $10,000 to $15,000. And now we've entered the $100 face zone. And you'd have to decide between keeping your house or having one of these characters at your party. The first one to open this list is Finn Wolfhard, Mike. His agency doesn't publish his price, but being a lead since the beginning, a musician, an actor in famous franchises like it, and also a director. It's easily estimated between $150,000 and $250,000. And if you want him to sing you a song, that's an extra expense. And within this range, we also find Eddie Monzon, played by Joseph Quinn. He's a special case because even though he only appeared for one season, his impact was just too huge. There were t-shirts, memes, concerts, TikToks, everything. So just because of pure demand, Eddie could cost between $150,000 and $300,000, no problem, and of course a few extra bucks. If you want him to play Master of Puppets for you, like in the show, now at the final part, where you just admit you can't afford it, there's Winona Ryder-Joyce. Although she doesn't give an official price and she's not such a central character in the series, we're talking about a Hollywood legend. Stranger Things revived her career after her terrible scandal, and that made her price skyrocket, so she could easily be between $250,000 and $400,000. That's how expensive things are getting. And finally, the two names that basically, not even with 3 bank loans, selling your house and all your organs, would you be able to afford. The first one, incredibly, is Caleb McLaughlin, Lucas Sinclair, which surprises many, but he's between $300,000 and almost $500,000. This is because he's a main character, has a strong personal brand, and a lot of presence at events. Although I really think it's just so they're not being racist. And the last name I think you can already guess. And yes, it's Millie Bobby Brown, 11, the face of Stranger Things. She's practically the brand. Movies, red carpets, Netflix, everything goes through her. Her fee ranges from $300,000 to nearly $500,000. If she appears at your party, you probably never need to work again. Also, don't get your hopes up because I don't think she'll stop taking care of her daughter just to go to your party, unless you pay her a little extra money. Well, friends, these were the prices it would cost to hire the cast of Stranger Things. If you had the money, who would you hire first, before you end up broke? Which other cast or series would you like to know the price of? Leave it in the comments, like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more.